This week on Unapologetic Uplift.
Yeah, so I've been studying perimenopause and menopause for almost 10 years, so 9 years going on 10. And it all started when I was 47. I was in my office, I'll never forget it, and I got my first hot flash. And when I got that first hot flash, my thought was, oh my gosh, am I in menopause? Wait a minute, isn't menopause for like my mother and my grandmother and older women? Like, I'm only 47, I'm not even 50. How am I in menopause? Like, I just knew absolutely nothing. I didn't know the word perimenopause existed.
And I was hemorrhaging and I was anemic and the Graves disease was off the charts. It was a horrific time. I was in fight or flight mode all the time. And I went to the doctor and they did the hormones and they said, wow, you have the hormones of a 65-year-old woman. You're completely in menopause.
I had something called phantom smells. That's when you smell things that other people don't because it doesn't actually exist in your immediate environment. I was smelling cigarette smoke, gasoline, burnt toast, burnt coffee. I was in perimenopause for 14 years total, 11 of which I actually had no idea of it. So that's when I thought I was like going crazy. Like, it's subtle changes that start to happen that you're like, who am I? Where's my old self? Used to be so sociable, and now you're like, I don't even want to see people. Or your rage, your moods, like all of that can come into place. In perimenopause, there were days I couldn't get out of bed, and I joke, I say I went from type AAA to an F minus personality. Like, had zero ambition to do anything or desire. So that's when I would say you kind of start to notice things are off.
Welcome back to Unapologetic Uplift. I am your host, Kim Staples, joined by my absolutely stunning co-host, Ianthe and our lovely guest, Andrea Donsky. Welcome. We are so happy to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Us too.
Yes, and you are in a world that, okay, I'm going to tell you, we made an episode, Kim and I, where we got all excited and fired up because we were talking about menopause and our hormones and we were like, oh, and this and that. And we were and when we finished and we recorded it and we finished and Kim went to edit it and the entire thing was ruined. We couldn't even air it. So I think we were meant to wait for you because, and this is a little spoiler alert, this is going to be an episode that probably talks about hormones. Tell me, am I right? Are we going to be discussing hormones in any way, shape, or form?
Well, perimenopause and menopause definitely tie into hormones. My lane is nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, and research. I'm not a hormone expert, but I'm definitely able to kind of like scratch the surface.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant. I said hormones, but I meant the world of perimenopause and menopause. So tell us where you are in that world, what your area of expertise is, what is exciting you right now in that world.
Yeah, so I've been studying perimenopause and menopause for almost 10 years, so 9 years going on 10. And it all started when I was 47. I was in my office, I'll never forget it, and I got my first hot flash. And at the time, I was in health and wellness for 17 years. So it has always been my job to educate and teach others about what they're putting in and on their body. And when I got that first hot flash, my thought was, oh my gosh, am I in menopause? Wait a minute, isn't menopause for like my mother and my grandmother and older women? Like, I'm only 47, I'm not even 50. How am I in menopause? Like, I just knew absolutely nothing. I didn't know the word perimenopause existed. And I was really hard on myself for a long time because I thought, well, this is what I do for a living. How can I not know anything about this phase of life? My mother never spoke to me about it. My grandmother never did. My doctor never brought it up. Obviously, we didn't learn about it in school. And I thought, if I don't know anything, then I'm guessing a lot of other women don't either. And that's what led me down the rabbit hole of really understanding perimenopause and menopause and then what we can do about it as when it comes to what's in my lane. As I mentioned, nutrition. I'm a nutritionist for 20 plus years. Supplements, lifestyle. What can we do to manage our stress? How should we be exercising and all of that? And then it also led me to do a lot of my own published research, which we can talk about as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead. Because I have so much. I'm jumping right in.
I feel like we both have so much to say about it. So I am in the early stages of perimenopause myself, and I fortunately did know about it just because I know other women that have been through it and have fortunately shared a lot with me. And I had been in the health and fitness world for many, many years. So I have always had a relatively good diet, not perfect because I'm not an all or nothing person and I do like to have sugar here and there. But I was finding that I was just getting really, really tired and I stopped being super consistent with my workouts. And then things started to kind of spiral from there because it's like I kind of started to feel like I didn't know my body the way that I know my body. It's like my body's telling me I'm tired, and I always honor my body because I have gotten to a place where I know if it's the mind just not wanting to exercise or if it's actually my body needing rest. And that feels like it has gone out the window. So now it's like every day I wake up tired and my body is telling me that it doesn't want to lift weights and do the things that I love to do. So it's been a huge adjustment to try and be like, okay, am I really tired or do I need to just push myself and do the thing and then I'm going to feel better after? Usually these days I'm pushing myself to do the workout and I do feel better after. And then I was also starting to spiral with my diet and like constantly craving sugar. And it's so addictive. And like when you try to stop the sugar, I was getting these wicked headaches. So I have since just weaned myself and I allow myself a little bit of sugar. But yeah, it's wild. And I would love at some point to tell you the things that I have been just recently religiously making sure I hit in terms of macros in my diet. And it has been helping a great deal, but of course, open to any feedback or suggestions that you also have.
So first of all, when you talk about being tired all the time, one thing we know for sure is, according to my published research, and this was published in December of 2024, that the number one symptom of perimenopause and menopause across the board, more so for women in peri, but across the board for women in perimenopause and menopause, is that 72% of women are fatigued. It's the number one symptom for women in general. So you're not alone. So I want you to know that. And that's a really important thing to understand, because a lot of the times when we think about menopause, we think hot flashes, right? Like that was my first thought is hot flashes. Oh, menopause. It must be that because they're synonymous. But actually, what's really interesting is for the longest time, hot flashes were number 10 on the list of 103 plus symptoms. So that's how many symptoms we've uncovered with the women in our community. And that's based on 5,300 responses. I talk about my research in chapter 2. I go into detail about it. To me, that's the most fascinating part of what I do, because I'm hearing from the women like yourself that are in our community who are sharing how they're feeling. So I always say, if you are exhausted, number one, don't be hard on yourself, because you're going through a transition, your body's changing, and it takes time. Think about like a recalibration, right? Like it's the transition. Yeah. Once you go into menopause, it does get better. For a lot of women, they're still tired, but it does get better. The other thing I want you to know too is that maybe now's a good time to go to your doctor and get certain blood tests done. For example, maybe there's low-hanging fruit. Maybe your thyroid is off. And because things are shifting and changing all the time, go ask for a thyroid test, a TSH, a free T3, a free T4. Like there's 5 or 6 different tests to ask for when it comes to thyroid health. Or maybe you're low in vitamin D. Most of us are. So unless you're in the optimal levels, you could be exhausted because your vitamin D is low. Same thing with your ferritin, which is your stored iron levels, and your B12. So now's a great time to say, okay, I'm going for my yearly blood test, or maybe twice a year, however you'd go, and ask your doctor to especially test those. Check your liver enzyme, check what's happening in your body, because possibly just adjusting for one of those might actually help with the fatigue. It may not take it away completely, but maybe it's actually going to help it. The second thing I want to mention is you talked about cravings. So things are absolutely changing as we go into perimenopause and menopause. We're more stressed, our cortisol is rising, our insulin. Like you want to get other things checked too, like fasting glucose, fasting insulin, because when things are off, our leptin, our ghrelin, leptin is how full we feel, ghrelin is our hunger hormone. These are hormones that tell us how full or how hungry we are. Those can change too. So understanding where your metrics are at can be helpful, and then it can kind of say, okay, like maybe I need to add more protein. Maybe I need to add more fiber. Like there's things that we could tweak in. Chapter 11, that is what we created something called our balance blueprint in our book. And that blueprint are 7 areas that we need to focus on to help us feel better and to help minimize cravings and to help with weight loss and to help with all the different things, fatigue, and just kind of to help us thrive.
Amazing. I'm going to get your book 100%. I have blood work tomorrow. I had it a year ago when I first started to experience this, and I did have low ferritin. So I started taking iron, and that definitely helped. I started eating more red meat because I had eliminated red meat from my diet just because I was concerned about, it's like with everything, there are benefits, but there are too much of anything isn't great, right? So I tried eliminating.
It's all about balance. That's
exactly. Yeah. So I have added a bit of that back in, but then I found again that I was feeling super sluggish. So I'm checking all of those things again. I have found for the brain fog, because the biggest thing was the brain fog. I was like, holy crap, I just feel foggy all the time. And then like mid-afternoon, I either need a nap or a coffee, and I'm a 1-a-day coffee girl. So to add a second coffee in gives me anxiety. And it's like, so I did try HRT, and that made me feel worse. I guess I don't have low enough estrogen to be taking it. And I started to get super irritable at a time where I have a preteen daughter who is also super irritable. So we're like, and I homeschool. So we're together 24 hours a day. So yeah, I scrapped the HRT, and what I have been doing is the creatine I believe is what helping with the brain fog. So I'm taking creatine every day. I have upped the fiber because one of the lovely symptoms that my body was just telling me I needed fiber because I was getting constipated so easily.
Very important.
So I am trying to have beans with every meal and a minimum of 40 grams of fiber a day. I don't know if you would suggest more fiber or less fiber, but right now I am getting more, but the minimum is 40
That's
grams.
A lot. I actually recommend 25 to 30 grams a day. So 40 is a lot of fiber. And if you could do it, I mean, great. But if it's too much, you could scale back down to 25 to 30.
That's good to know, because I find that I'm consuming a lot more calories trying to hit the fiber goal. Again, that's a crazy balancing act. I'm doing 130 grams of protein, because they say like a gram per pound of ideal body weight.
I'll take you through all of it. It's so interesting that, and I'm listening to you speak, and I'm like, it becomes stressful in a way of like, am I hitting all my macros? Am I doing everything I need to do? Right. And it becomes this overwhelming list of check boxes that we need to kind of check every time, every day.
Every meal.
That in itself, every meal is going to spike your cortisol. Like, it is stressful and overwhelming. So one thing that we did, my co-author and I, she was a nutritionist. She's been a nutritionist for more than 30 years. I've been for more than 20. And there isn't a ton of research for women in perimenopause and menopause yet when it comes to how much protein. Like, it's starting to come, but we literally scoured all the research. We scoured all the information that's out there, all of her patients. She's been a practicing clinician for 30 years. Like, we looked through everything, our own N of ones, which is our own, we call it me search. Like, I heard that term, I love it. So when we looked through everything in chapter 11 and in our balance blueprints, so L in the balance formula stands for load up on protein. And what we did is we came up with a formula that works. So if you're 140 pounds or less, then look to get 20 to 25 grams of protein a day minimum. And that's assuming 3 meals a day. So then on top of that, you want to add on whether or not, if you're taking a GLP-1, you might need more. If your personal goals want to get you somewhere quicker, maybe you need more. How tall are you? What's your body size? Like, how much are you exercising? All of that plays a role. If you're 140 pounds or more, then we say 25 to 30 grams of protein per day, per meal, assuming 3 meals a day. That's the starting point. And then you're adding up on top of that. So the way I look at it, we provide actually some macro counters. There's so many out there. Do what's right for your body, but don't just follow a number because somebody said follow this number. So, and also, I truly believe that we're all so different. And because all of our bodies are different and we need different things and we have different goals, what is right for you is not necessarily going to be right for me.
Right.
So that's the first thing when it comes to protein. For fiber, like I said, 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. Most of us are eating about half that amount. If you can't get that amount and you're saying that I don't want to consume that many calories, then maybe looking at a fiber supplement. Like at Morphus, we have a fiber supplement called Fiber Us. It's awesome. So always food first, but if you need to top up without actually adding more food, let's say if you're following a certain amount of calories a day or however it is you're looking in terms of your food and your tracking, and maybe you're not. I'm always for like looking at the ingredients in food more so than looking at the calories. That's my background.
Yeah.
But if you are, and many women are, and I know a lot of women are concerned about weight gain in this phase of life, chapter 5 is all about why we gain weight in perimenopause and menopause. So it's a real thing. 50% of women are gaining weight in this phase of life, more so in menopause than necessarily in perimenopause. A little bit of a tidbit and insight into our research. But, you know, if we follow the balanced blueprint, so I talked about protein, I talked about fiber, looking at managing our blood sugar levels, adding good quality fats. Like we want to have salmon, omega-3s, like polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fats, like olive oil and coconut and olive oil and avocado oil. And you may want to look at something like coconut oil in smaller amounts. It's more of a saturated fat, but still, these are fats that can be beneficial for our body. Nurturing your digestion, choosing more plants, looking to get at least 30 different plant foods a week if you can, right? So these are things to be mindful of, and then making sure you're hydrated. Those are the simple kind of the balanced blueprint guidelines that we provide, and then customize it for your body. And the thing too is not being stressed about it, just being mindful. And to your point, you mentioned before about craving sugar. By the way, it's not an all or nothing thing for me either. This is why we call it balance, because 80-20, you can follow that 80-20 rule, because there is something to be said for enjoying that piece of chocolate or cake or whatever it is you're eating. That's going to make you happy too. You know, so as long as you're enjoying it and as long as you're like eating it with that intention of like, this is making me so happy, or that glass of wine or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, because that adds extra stress as well.
So good. I'm going to let Ianthe speak. I just want to say that I love all the suggestions you made. I am going to get your book for sure. It sounds incredible. The suggestions that were given to me were through a naturopath, but she is not a nutritionist, right? So I'm just really excited to dive into your book. It sounds so good. And like everything all in one place will just be so delicious. So
well, and it took us 2 years to write the book. So like, this isn't something I wrote kind of like off the cuff. There are 1,500 references in the book. So everything's backed by research.
Beautiful.
It's backed by our own research, my own research as well. And it's also backed by Lisa's clinical practice. Like everything is written based on some type of evidence. And that's why we're so proud of this book and why it took us so long to write it.
Yeah, congratulations.
I see it in the background, and I would love for you to just shamelessly plug it by holding it up, because I want to look at that beautiful cover. Nourishing Menopause. I like that, how it's 2 words, so I see the word pause. Okay, so a few things that came up as you were speaking. First of all, I really love and want to acknowledge you for how you're talking about how we feel and our relationship to food in our bodies, in that when we're stressed, because we're looking so closely at how many grams and how many this number and that, it actually is counterproductive towards our overall health. And I heard you say that in your words, but I'm reflecting it back to you because that's one of the most important takeaways. I have shared before that there was research done out of Harvard years ago where they looked at what is the one thing that makes people have the most optimal health with the absence of really horrible disease. And they were looking at sleep, and they were looking at, you can imagine, nutrition, all of these things. And it ended up being that the only thing that the people with optimal health had in common is that they felt loved and supported. So another, to that, I want to say that you also mentioned not having to be alone, not feeling alone, when Kim talked about how she's been feeling, and you say, well, you don't have to feel alone. That's part of being loved and supported. And so anyone listening right now, if you are a woman and you feel like this is speaking to you, I want to encourage you to get Andrea's book. I want to encourage you to find, if it's Andrea or someone else, a nutritionist that can work with you, because it is hard to do this alone. I'm going to just share a little bit about my personal story. At 39 years old, I had all sorts of wacky symptoms. I was going through a divorce. My children were very young. I was extremely stressed. And at the doctor, they said, you have all the markers for bone marrow cancer. And I was terrified. And I went to an oncologist. Turned out I had Graves' disease, which is a thyroid disease. And then I was reunited with my first boyfriend from high school. We fell in love and we were deciding to get married. And I always thought in the back of my mind, maybe we will have a child together and bring our families together in that way. And I was having strange symptoms with my periods, and basically a period that wouldn't stop. And I was hemorrhaging, and I was anemic, and I had and the Graves' disease was off the charts. It was a horrific time. I was in fight or flight mode all the time. And I went to the doctor and they did the hormones and they said, wow, you have the hormones of a 65-year-old woman. You're completely in menopause.
Wow.
So I did not have perimenopause, but I want to tell you the thing that happened for me in that. And if I get emotional, it's just part of the story. I'm feeling emotional talking about it. But here's the thing. When she told me that, yes, I cried and I thought, okay, I can never have a child again. I won't have a child with the love of my life, but I have 2 beautiful children. So I'm grateful. But I did this funny thing because my mind is very strong this way. And I said to myself, I'm not going to associate myself as being in menopause. I'm too young for that. I'm not even accepting this. I'm not going to have any symptoms. It's not real. I remember, I've never shared this publicly, but because I'm just remembering as we're speaking. I remember the feeling of strongly saying no to this. And part of it was, there was a study that I read out of Japan that women in menopause, do you know about this? How they feel about menopause? You probably heard this, that in Japan, it's this beautiful stage where you're now this goddess of your village and you are, you're in your prime. Like it's a very sacred, special time. And so they welcome it. And they actually don't have all the symptoms we complain of. And I think, because of mind-body connection, I think, well, when you think of something as a really good thing, it's not necessarily you're not going to experience all the symptoms. So I was thinking about that. I was also thinking I'm too young. I just had a lot of judgment around it. But where the whole point of my saying that is, today at 55, I'm in a very different stage. And I am so grateful that you exist and that you're talking about this and bringing it to us, because I now am not hiding anymore. Hi, everyone. I'm in full menopause and I have been for a very long time, but I'm owning it now. And I want to do something to feel better because now I'm starting to have symptoms. And last thing I will say, because I am the person that defines terms on our podcast, when Kim said HRT, just for anyone listening who doesn't know what that means, it's hormone replacement therapy, which, by the way, I've been on since I was 39 years old. Back to you, Andrea.
No, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. And it's very interesting because one thing that I have found since I've been doing what I do is that it brings out so many emotions in all of us, right? Like I tell a story in the book where I met a friend of mine. I just met her at the gym and we became friends, and she was telling me about her story and she got emotional and we both started crying. And it just, you, Ianthe, and so many women, you can, like, we all have our story. And that's why this book was so personal to me, because I was there too. I had my story. I struggled for years and years and years. And because I was an expert in, supposed to understand nutrition, like that's what I did for my job, I was extra hard on myself because I'm like, and how I said this before, I'm like, how did I not know? And because of that, I had to relearn everything. And the journey of relearning everything was able to teach me how I can now show up for all of you ladies to be able to say, okay, here's what I learned. Here's what the research says. Here's what thousands and thousands and thousands of women in our community are saying. And here's how we can feel better. And interestingly enough, 2 things. One is you're talking about mindset and you're talking about how it affects us. Research shows that how we view menopause, if we have a negative view of menopause, it actually shows we will have more symptoms than if we view it as a positive thing. And for the longest time, so yes, I talk about the Japanese women and how they view it in chapter 1. I go through it. And I also talk about this woman, her name is Zora, how she's gone through did 300 different interviews of women in menopause from different countries and how they view it. And we're going to be doing research on that, which I'm very excited about. But how we view it makes a big difference, which is why I have an entire chapter on mindset. Literally one entire chapter, mindset, self-love, self-care, relationships, all of that we cover. And I just, when you say that, it makes me feel so happy because I'm like, that's why I do what I do. That's why we call the book Nourishing Menopause, because we wanted to be, when we were trying to figure out, when Simon Schuster and I were trying to figure out the name, so we ended up with Nourishing Menopause, Powerful Nutrition and Lifestyle Strategies to Feel Your Best. But at first I was like, okay, let me just kind of ask other women what they think of the word nourishing menopause or the 2 words. And what came back over and over again was, I feel like you're giving me a hug. And I was like, done. That is why. Yeah, because I want to support you, I want to validate you, and I want you to understand that I am here to help as best as I can. So that was like, yeah, I didn't even have to think twice about it. I'm like, yep, done, Nourishing Menopause. Like, that's the name. So
I
I'm happy
love
to hear that.
I'm currently envisioning just laying in the grass, reading the book.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned Simon and Schuster, which is a big publisher, and I'm wondering if anyone's ears went, "Oh, how does that happen? How do you go from, I mean, I guess I should ask first, is this the first book that you've published, or are you already a published author going into this book?"
So this is my second book, actually, and second one with Simon and Schuster as well. I wrote a book in 2011, way before kind of it was even trendy or out there. It was called Unjunk Your Junk Food. And it talked about ingredients that were in foods that we should be mindful of, like high fructose corn syrup and trans fats and monosodium glutamate and artificial sweeteners and all of those ingredients that kind of, this was even before like GMOs were there around or seed oils, like this was so long ago. So we published that in 2011, and then actually had a book agent. So it was different parts. So the first book was Simon Schuster out of New York, and this book is Simon Schuster out of Canada. So they are two different, same company, two different organizations, how they're run. And I found a book agent through a mutual friend and pitched the idea. She loved it, and then she pitched it to the publisher. So I'm very grateful for Simon & Schuster Canada, especially Brittany, who is my editor, like for her saying, yeah, we need this book, and her bringing it on and her kind of seeing the value for the women. Right now, the book is, we have been on every single bestseller list there is in Canada out there to be able to even be on. The book's only been out for a few weeks, and we hit the Globe and Mail bestseller list twice, 2 weeks in a row in 2 categories. We hit the Toronto Star bestseller list at the number 4 spot. We hit the Indigo bestseller list nationwide. Amazon bestseller. It's literally hit every single list, and it's very, very exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's not even me. This is the book. It's so needed. Women need this book. They need this information. And what makes this book so different than other books on the market is that, because there's a lot of menopause books on the market, but what makes it unique to us and to me is, first of all, it's my story. I weave stories throughout of my own journey, because I'm a menopausal woman who went through it all and probably had most of the 103 plus symptoms. But also I bridge the gap between allopathic and integrative health. And so for me, that's how I live my life. I have a balance of both. I love research, I love allopathic medicine, and I love holistic medicine, holistic health. So bringing it all together based on what the research says, based on my own experience, based on Lisa Tsakos's experience, we put it into that one place, which has our 26 years of experience under our belt. And we're very honest. When there's research, we'll be like, there's research. When there isn't, we'll be like, this is anecdotal. So we're very upfront and honest and authentic, but we provide all the information. I had a lot of information in my brain over 26 years, and now it's in one place. It's like my legacy. I'm so proud of it.
Oh, as you should be. So I have a couple other questions, if that's okay.
Of course, please, fire away.
The first was, we had talked about this list of symptoms and how hot flashes are like number 10 of 100, and I can't remember what the exact number was.
103 plus, yeah.
Yeah, 103 plus, wonderful. And I have never experienced a hot flash as of yet, but fortunately was able to figure out this is the stage of life that I'm at. But I recognize that so many women are beginning perimenopause, and some even in their 30s. Like I started having night sweats in my late 30s with PMS specifically. It was like every time PMS came, all of a sudden I was waking up drenched.
Yep.
So, what would be some markers for a woman to look for in the beginning of perimenopause to be like, okay, I think this is what it is? If you could just be like, look for this. And
great question. So perimenopause, to your point, I started actually at 36. I had something called phantom smells. That's when you smell things that other people don't, because it doesn't actually exist in your immediate environment. I was smelling cigarette smoke, gasoline, burnt toast, burnt coffee. So these are very common smells. And actually we have research. We have a phantom smell survey that we now know that the most common phantom smell, the category is something burning. So it could be cigarette smoke, cigar smoke, campfire, burning plastic, burning electronics, any of that. So it could start, perimenopause can start as early as 35, sometimes even earlier. Most women will go into perimenopause in their 40s and 50s. It's generally about a decade before we go into menopause. And it can last anywhere from a couple of months to 14 plus years. I was in perimenopause for 14 years total, 11 of which I actually had no idea of it. So that's when I thought I was like going crazy.
Wow.
So you might notice, to answer your question, that you're more tired than you've been before. You were able to plow through your day, and now by 3 o'clock, you're like, whoa, I am exhausted. I need to take a nap, like you alluded to before. Or maybe your sleep is off. Like you could sleep like a baby before, and now you are up between 2 and 4 a.m. staring at the ceiling. Or maybe your weight is fluctuating. For me, for years, my weight would go up and down 8 to 10 pounds every few months, and I didn't change anything. I didn't change what I ate. I didn't change what I was doing exercise-wise, but yet I was literally up and down the sizes. And it's frustrating because 8 to 10 pounds is a different size, right? So I'm constantly going back between my jean sizes, my clothes sizes. My boobs were huge. I couldn't get my shirts over my tank tops over my boobs, my chest. So you might notice subtle things: brain fog, memory, anxiety. Maybe you never really had anxiety before, but now it's starting to creep in. Or before you can drive on the highway, now you're like, I don't even want to drive at night. I don't want to go anywhere near the highway. Like, it's subtle changes that start to happen that you're like, who am I? Where's my old self? Used to be so sociable, and now you're like, I don't even want to see people. Or your rage, your moods, like all of that can come into play. So you just notice things are like, wait a minute. That's not me. That's changing. How come, so it's those subtle changes that start to happen. And then as you get closer, it could be also your period is changing. Maybe they're longer, shorter, heavier, lighter. What you had, if you had major bleeding, maybe you had what they call flooding. And so period changes are kind of that telltale sign of perimenopause, but not always. Fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, joint pain, loss of libido, like all of those are up there as well. For me, loss of concentration, loss of focus. Oh my gosh, I couldn't get out of bed some days. Like, I am a type AAA personality, always have been, entrepreneur, have my hand in a million things. In perimenopause, there were days, I couldn't get out of bed. And I joke, I say I went from type AAA to an F- personality. Like, had zero ambition to do anything or desire. So that's when I would say you kind of start to notice things are off.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
And another term that you dropped that I want to let everyone know, allopathic medicine, is a way to describe conventional medicine, right? Western medicine, where we would think of going to a regular doctor and getting a prescription, or listening to your heart. That. And it's used a lot in the natural space. And I think a lot of our listeners will already know, but I just never like to assume. I always want, when I hear a word that I think maybe needs a definition, I come in with it.
I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So all of that it's fascinating and exciting to me. So if we're listening, people are listening, these women are listening, and they're saying, that's me, like Kim and I are saying as we're listening to you.
Yeah.
Is it something that, and I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is it something that we now have to get used to this because this is our new way of being? Or are there parts of us that we miss that we can reclaim? And like, for instance, can we have less brain fog? Can we have better libido? Can we have better weight stability, feeling good in our body? What is this all in your book, ways for us to do this? Or is this something people have to come to you personally for? Or will we get a lot of this in the book?
Oh, it's all in the book. Everything is in the book. Like, everything that I currently know is in the book in terms of help, but you don't have to suffer. Like, here's the thing. I remember when my mom was going through menopause and perimenopause, and I remember she'd be like, she had the worst hot flashes, and she would suffer. And back then, they didn't have what they have now. And there are so many options nowadays that we could do. So like I say, like, there's a lot of tools in our toolbox. We've got nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, mindset, and hormones, if that's something you choose to do. And we can be looking at all of it, right? It's not kind of like a one or the other. Like, we can only do this and we can't do that. So that's why the book is so important. And by the way, I do talk about hormone therapy in the book a lot. It's more that I bring in experts to talk about it, because I say in my lane, I am very adamant. What I know what I know. And I study this 24/7. You want to ask me about my own personal experience, that's one thing. But in terms of giving advice, I go to the experts that literally prescribe hormones all the time. So that's why it's the blend of that conventional Western medicine with holistic and integrative health, because I've got so many experts who are medical doctors, OBGYNs, naturopaths who understand hormones and hormone therapy. And so it's all in the book, and you definitely can learn a lot from the book. If there's something, if you wanted somebody more in particular who can help you with like creating recipes or different things that can tell you menus that can help you with the food part of it, then yeah, absolutely. Definitely go look at somebody who can help you with that. I interviewed somebody on my podcast recently. Her name is Natalie Bean, nutrition expert. And that's what she does. She literally creates menus for women, and she tells you what to eat, and she works with you. So she holds your hand, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I think depending what you're looking for, the book itself will give you that foundation of what you need. And then from there, it'd be like, okay, if I need extra help here, let me reach out to this person or that person.
Oh, thank you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And so I'm sure it's available. You did mention all the places, Amazon, but is there a particular place you like people to buy it? Does it matter? Or we can just find it anywhere?
We can find it anywhere. Amazon.ca, Amazon.com, Indigo. I believe it's in bookstores across the US, but if not, the easiest place, like I'm a big also proponent of supporting indie bookstores, like our local independent bookstores. I'll give the definition for you on that one.
Yeah.
Indie bookstores, independent bookstores. Yeah, exactly. So, but it is available on both Amazons, and you could find it, and depending how quickly you want it, or yeah. So
would it be okay for you to choose one little paragraph that you could read to us so we could get a feel of your voice?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I'm being put on the spot here.
And I mean your writing voice. I know I could get even crazier with putting you on the spot, and I could just name a number and make you open that page. But
oh my God,
I'm known to do that. I'm not going to do that to you today.
You know what? You know what? Instead of reading you something, because I don't want to take up your time on reading it, but I think something that I do want to mention that's important, that gives you a good indication of who I am and my voice. I'm very compassionate. And I also, because I'm in it myself, I understand what women are going through. It's not like I'm just writing a book from an expert standpoint. I'm an expert, and I'm a woman in menopause who went through an awful time herself. I suffered for years until I figured out the formula and relearned everything I knew. So I come from this place of, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm sharing what I learned, and then hoping that you will take a nugget or two from it and then be able to implement that into your own life. But one of the chapters that I wanted to write, and I wanted to be very sensitive to, was chapter 5. And it's called Why We Gain Weight in Perimenopause and Menopause. And I came from it because as a Gen Xer for myself, and you're a bit younger than me, but for us growing up as Gen Xers, it was like, don't eat this, eat that, don't have so many calories, don't eat fat, don't eat carbs, and it was like there was so much noise around weight gain, and I know millennials as well, and like the body shaming and all of that comes into it. And I wanted to be very sensitive how I wrote the chapter on weight gain, because one of the things that I want women to understand and know, even though 50% of us are experiencing weight gain challenges, most of the reasons of the 17 reasons I discuss in the book, it has nothing to do with willpower. There's other things at play. So I don't want women to blame themselves for the weight gain and the weight fluctuations. And now we have more belly fat and more visceral fat. Like before perimenopause and menopause, 5 to 8% of our fat was visceral. Now it's like 15 to 18%. So that's a big change. And not because you're eating more or you're not able to control yourself. It's like there's so many other things at play. So I just kind of come at that chapter from a very different standpoint, of more so from empowerment and from understanding that I don't want you to blame yourself. And, so to me, that's probably one of my favorite chapters in terms of really understanding where we're coming from. And then also looking at it from, I even interviewed a good friend of mine who's a body image expert. I had her reread chapter 5 on my book to ensure that I was coming from this place of empowerment and never any blame or anything else.
I'm very grateful to hear that, and thank you. Yeah, no, you don't have to. I'm not forcing you to read it, but that was exactly what I was hoping. But that was what I was hoping for, was a feeling that is I mean, already going to read the book, but that's even more reason why I need to. I so appreciate that. I'm also Gen X like you, and I raised a daughter who's now in her 20s. And one thing that I'm grateful for is I understood early on, before I had children, I came to a conscious decision that I would break those patterns that we grew up with.
Exactly.
And it was hard. I was an actress and a model, so you can imagine in the early 90s, in the late 80s and early 90s, it was constantly lose 5 pounds, lose 5 pounds.
Oh my
and I
gosh.
look back and I go, no one should have told that girl to lose anything.
Yeah.
No one should have told her. That's just no. So thank you also for what you're doing in breaking that, because that that negative body image, self-talk stuff is something that on Unapologetic Uplift we don't do. So you're right there with us, and we're so appreciative. And as we wrap up, I just want to thank you for finding us, and also say congratulations, with the biggest congratulations from my whole heart, for putting out something in the world that's obviously so needed and having the world receive it so quickly in such a big way. And we hope to continue that and see that just continue to get into everybody's hands that needs it, because what you're doing is very important. And I personally thank you. And I know our audience needs this. And Kim, if you want to say anything too in closing.
Yeah, also, I think you hit it perfectly, but also congratulations and thank you. I can use this book. Our audience can use. I know so many women that I'm going to recommend this book to. And where is the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, so my website, so if they want to go and learn more from just our website, it's nourishingmenopausebook.com. You could find me on social media. I'm everywhere at Andrea Donsky and at We Are Morphus, which is my company. I live on TikTok, but I'm on Instagram too. I'm actually posting a lot about the book on Instagram, so having fun there. And then, yeah, you can also go to my website, which is andreadonsky.com. So I'm kind of, if you just even type in my name, you can get to me.
Beautiful. And as always, if you gained something from this episode, as I know so many people will, please take a screenshot, share it to your stories, tag all of us, and let us know what you loved about this episode. Make sure you're subscribed, leave us a 5-star review, and make sure you're following all of us so that we can connect and be friends. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you again next week.